My name is Rick, and I'm hoping you will join my wife and me on our 10-day trip to Utah. As you can see, we went to the Mighty Five National Parks, Canyonlands, Capitol Reef, Zion, Arches, and Bryce Canyon, as well as Four Corners National Monument, Mesa Verde National Park, and the Durango and Silverton Railroad. We also went to Lake Powell, which straddles Utah and Arizona, and the Garden of the Gods in Colorado Springs. I hope you enjoy the trip. Day 1. We flew from Baltimore to Denver, but not on this plane. We hadn't thought about snow one way or the other, but I was so happy to see it that I snapped the photo. We had a nice drive along Interstate 70, which starts at the Baltimore Beltway, and we were happy to see more snow in April. The White River National Forest near Glenwood Springs is about 160 miles west of Denver. There was much more snow, and when we stopped at a rest stop, we found skiers coming out of the woods. As we got closer to Grand Junction, the terrain changed and the snow was gone. We spent the night in Grand Junction. This sculpture of horses rearing up was practically under an interstate in the middle of a traffic roundabout or circle. Day 2. We left Grand Junction and headed for Arches National Park in Moab, Utah. We could have gone farther on the interstate and taken a good road to the park, but we decided to get off at the small town of Cisco and take the scenic route. We planned on getting gas and snack at the local store. As you can see, there was no local store or anything else in Cisco. All the buildings looked like this. We looked it up later and found that it's officially listed as a ghost town. Its most recent claim to fame was being used in the movie Thelma and Louise, filmed in 1991, 29 years ago. We did see some sights down this tiny road, at least it was paved, and this picture shows a cave with a huge mouth and a pile of rocks that looks like a steam engine. How did Mother Nature, more than 25,000 years ago, know that we humans would invent such a thing? There's nothing like a lazy river, mesas, hills, and snow-covered mountains to make a drive so relaxing. We finally made it to Arches National Park. Of course, we went into the visitor center. The back window had a spectacular view. This is the visitor center from above. The road into the park is in the upper left of the picture. It goes through a couple of switchbacks before it turns into the park itself. There's an overlook where this scene spreads out in front of you. Does this look like Park Avenue to you? Someone thought it did, and that's its name. Only the right side is shown, but both sides look the same. The pillars do look like skyscrapers, and the flat wall under them enhances the New York skyscraper look. These mounds look like sand and sand dunes. We didn't go off the path and check to see if they were soft sand or hard rock, but their name is petrified dunes, so we assume they were hard. Of course, in Arches National Park, there's an arch in the background. This looks like a wall, and someone named it the Great Wall. This is only a small section, probably only 1/10 of the entire wall. There's a small arch at the top. I'll bet you've seen this formation about 100 times. Balanced rock is one of the most recognizable features in the park. Shortly after Balanced Rock, there's a turnoff into a section with about 20 arches. You won't see all of them, but here are some notable ones. This is North Window with South Window shown as an insert. North Window is the larger and most appealing of the two. It's a little harder to get to South Window, and the trail tells the story. A lot fewer people take the time to go around and explore this one. When you get to North Window, turn around and look behind you to see Turret Arch. I don't know how it got that name, but maybe the part on the left, sticking up in the air, could look like a turret. When you look through Turret Arch, the park where you just traveled is spread out before you. Some of the features that are shown in this movie can be seen in the distance. Don't bother looking for them because they are so far away and they look very tiny. There are two features in this picture, Double Arch on the left and the Cove of Caves on the right. The two arches in Double Arch share a common pillar at the far left. It's easy to see the first arch. When you look through the first arch, you can see the second arch ending at the hill. Both arches start on the same pillar and end butting into the hill. Speaking of butting, this feature is Elephant Butte. There are two elephants here, one at each side of the photo. The round knob on the left is an elephant's head, and the trunk slopes down and to the left. The one on the right is harder to see from this angle. The view is head-on. You can see the elephant's head, eyes, and an ear on the right. It's hard to see, but there is a trunk. Unlike the left elephant, its trunk is separate, and you can look through the space between the elephant and its trunk. Delicate Arch got its name because, compared to the other arches in the area, it appears to be delicately chiseled. We didn't make the 3-mile hike to get close. A telephoto lens made the trip for us. That's a mighty slim path between those two rocks on the way to Sand Dune Arch. The ground is loose sand, which no doubt gives the arch its name. The left side of the arch looks like a bird's head to me. It looks to the right with nostrils at the top of its beak and 4 eyes farther to the left. 4 eyes? Well, that's what I see. What about you? 1 park down, 4 to go. Day 3. We spent the night in Moab and then sort of crossed the street and visited Canyonlands National Park. The parks are close. It's only about a 20-minute drive, and both parks are on the same highway. We were short on time because we added this at the last minute. Also, this is a hiker's park, and neither of us wanted to hike a minimum of 1 mile to see a view. So this visit was a driving tour. It was early in the morning, and the fog was still around. These canyons didn't look too inviting to us, so we were glad to just stop in an overlook to take pictures and see what they looked like. Not much growing down in this canyon either. You can almost imagine that it isn't fog. It's fumes rising from some deadly chemical concoction. Ooh! It's getting later, but there's not much fog there. It's a little lighter out too, but the canyon still looks like it would be deathly dangerous to go down in it. This is Black Canyon, and I viewed the name as a warning. Now, the sun is up and the fog is gone, but this canyon still doesn't look nearly as inviting as, say, the Grand Canyon. We agreed it's definitely time to go. 2 parks down, 3 to go. Capitol Reef National Park was next on the trip, and we didn't expect much. The fee to get in was about half of the other parks. The word reef in the park's name is used because it refers to a rocky land barrier. Water Pocket Fold is a 65-million-year-old warp in the crust of the Earth. There was a tour, but from the pictures in the visitor center, it appeared that we would be seeing similar things in Bryce Canyon and Zion National Parks. This is the Capitol Dome. There was just one small sign telling us about the White Sandstone Formation. Not much more to say. We still had a lot of driving before we would arrive at Bryce Canyon City for the night. 3 parks down, 2 to go. The drive to Bryce Canyon City started out beautifully. Who doesn't like a scene like this? There was snow the night before. We drove through Dixie National Forest, and the light snow on the ground and the pines was beautiful. Don't you think it looks even better when you can see a long stretch of the forest? Suddenly, in an instant, we left the relaxing snow and forest scenery and sped into the reds and oranges of the desert. Little did we know what we were heading into. This is the hogback on Utah Route 12. There was no warning, no signs, there was no place to stop for Valium. We were there. Look on the left side of the road. Can you see it drop off at a steep angle? It's not so bad, only a 600-foot drop to the first ledge. Look on the right. Notice the orange canyon at the edge of the photo. That's where you might go after the first 600-foot drop. We weren't nervous. We weren't scared. We were terrified. When we reached the little convenience store in Escalante a few miles down the road, the clerk looked up at us and said, "That's some ride, isn't it?" The next area was very desolate. There were signs that humans had been there, but nobody stayed. Come here for work, then go somewhere else to sleep. We did see an odd hiker, though. He was alone and dressed in a kilt and in full college dress. Strange. At least there was some grass here. No sign of habitation, but maybe someone grazed sheep or cattle here. Only one more hour to Bryce Canyon City. Day 4. It's morning, we've had breakfast, and we're ready to go. We're ready to explore Bryce Canyon National Park. The park road was laid out by a forward-thinking engineer. All of the views were on the east side of the road, so visitors are directed south all the way to the end of the road, so that on the way back north, everyone pulls off to the right, eliminating turns in front of oncoming traffic. Brilliant, except for the scofflaws. Juvimpa Point is first on the list. As with most of the overlooks, the scenes speak for themselves. The massive terracotta columns at Rainbow Point were impressive. This is Black Birch Canyon. Yes, I know these are not black birches, but the patterns of the snow in the crevices of the rock was very interesting. You can't stop Mother Nature. She'll plant a shrub anywhere and dare you to disturb it. This formation is Natural Bridge. There's a prize for anyone who can guess how it got its name. Bryce Point is one of the most spectacular viewpoints. This is the overlook with the view in the background. And this is the view. These sandy paths invite hikers. The fences and stone walls, like the one at the bottom of the photo, keep low-impact visitors on paved walkways. There is a walking trail with many side trails that runs from one end of Park Road to the other. Yes, that is the name of the road. Such a creative name. Inspiration Point has several interesting features. One of these is a combination of white and red rock that makes up the wall. The way the holes and columns are formed, it almost looks like people carved them out, but they didn't. This scene at Inspiration Point was so fascinating. It looks like someone has carved out almost identical columns. They are stacked in all 3 dimensions, and they remind me of the terracotta soldiers in China. The shapes are fascinating, but it's the regimented order of the columns that I find so amazing. The name of this lookout is lost in my brain, but it was about 1/10 of a mile to the top, and the trail, no steps, was very steep. Most of it was about a 45-degree angle. I had to stop and rest several times during my climb to the top. The raised viewpoint certainly gave a different perspective on the canyon. Day 5. We're here at Zion National Park. The section of the park closest to the visitor center is a narrow canyon, and its central road follows the North Fork of the Virgin River. As I said earlier, my wife and I are not hikers, and this park demands hiking to see its best features, so we took the free bus tour. Also, this is the 5th park in 5 days, and we were getting a bit tired. But here we go. The photo is ours, but the information comes straight off a sign in the park. The mountain tops form a semicircle around the canyon floor. Only some of the mountains are in this photo. I'm going to read the information at the bottom. Temples and towers. Only 2 miles from this spot, the West Temple rises 3,800 feet from the canyon floor. Zion's huge scale is immediate. The geology is close at hand. You'll see how close later. Look at the bus stop. We're just off the road. Believe me, these tall mountains look more impressive when you're there in person. The tall rock monoliths seem to be pushed straight up from the ground. There were some rock climbers on several of them, but we were on the bus and I couldn't get a photo of one. More of the same, but they are getting closer. It was a short, easy 4/10 of a mile hike to get the photo of these giants. The sign at the first stop said Zion's geology was close at hand. Is this close enough? What about now? 5 parks down, 0 to go. We've completed Utah's Mighty 5. Day 6. We drove south towards Lake Powell and the nearby town of Page, Arizona. The road south passes the lake and crosses right in front of the Glen Canyon Dam. It's the second highest concrete arch gravity dam in the country at 710 feet. The Hoover Dam is taller by only 16 feet. These dinosaur tracks were found during the construction of the dam. Lake Powell supports many types of recreational and sporting activities. This is one of the marinas on the lake. Late in the evening, we went on a boat tour that took us into Antelope Canyon. We are at an overlook to get a good picture of the dam end of the lake. Look past the dam and you can see the bridge crossing in front of it. The bridge is the visitor's overlook for the dam. It has a chain link fence there to keep people from falling into the river, probably 600 feet below. Whoever owns the fence very nicely cut several camera and viewing holes so that visitors can get clear views of the dam. The outskirts of the town of Page are farther up the hill and to the left. We are on the boat tour into Antelope Canyon. The white substance on the side of the canyon walls is calcium, and it marks the highest water level the dam can hold. Our guide told us that the water causes calcium to leach out of the rock. I said to my wife, "You won't have to take your calcium pill tonight. Just stick out your tongue." She was not amused. Our tour boat is heading into the narrowest part of the canyon. We are leaving now, and the sun is casting some interesting shadows on the sides of the canyon. This is a view from another overlook. The entrance to Antelope Canyon is the waterway in the upper left corner of the photo. Day 7. You wouldn't want to make big travel plans to see the Four Corners National Monument, but if you are driving close by, you should take a look. The first thing you notice is that the sign is not the usual type of sign that you see at national parks and monuments. The monument itself looks like it was built and maintained by the Park Service, but the surrounding buildings, souvenir booths, and parking lots are not what you'd expect. That's because the monument is owned by the Park Service, but everything else is privately owned and managed. This is the monument itself. There is a plaque for the monument in general and a separate plaque for each of the 4 states. There is a small fee, $5 in 2018, to view and photograph the monument. As it is not run by the federal government, my federal park pass was not accepted. You can probably guess that this is the marker for the actual intersection of the 4 states. In spite of the conditions I mentioned before, our visit was exciting. We made it to our second destination of the day, Mesa Verde National Park in Colorado. The Pueblo people lived here from 700 to 1300 AD. The spruce tree house got its name because the ranchers who discovered it also discovered a big spruce tree in front of it. It is the third largest dwelling in the area, and it was built during the last 100 years the Pueblo people lived here, between 1200 and 1300 AD. This is another example of Pueblo architecture. The stonework is excellent and, as it was built over 6 centuries ago, very long-lasting. I combined my photography and an educational park sign. The places that are highlighted on the sign can be seen in the photo. I'm going to read the information at the top. Split level history, Mesa top and alcove living. The Pueblo used the cliff alcoves for the entire time they lived in Mesa Verde, over 600 years. The cliff dwellings themselves were built between 1200 and 1300 AD. Day 8. We are finally in Durango and getting ready for our trip on the Durango and Silverton Railroad. As a rail fan, it was all I could do to avoid the temptation to put 20 pictures of the steam train in this movie. Those photos follow the tour and take about 2 minutes. Right now, the engineer is inspecting the locomotive and the fireman is making sure he's built a good fire. As in days of old, the conductor is checking everyone's ticket. The Durango and Silverton Railroad is almost always ranked in the top 10 scenic and tourist railroads in the country. Most of its rails are located in the San Juan National Forest. The fireman is doing an excellent job keeping the fire hot. The pressure in the boiler must be higher than needed, so the engineer is letting off a little steam. We paid a little extra to ride in a car with a historical figure narrating the tour. There is almost too much to say about Carolyn Wescott Romney. A short summary is that she was a newspaper correspondent, editor, and owner, a genealogist, and a real estate owner. That's quite an accomplishment for a woman in the 1870s. But that's not all. She was a reporter in Washington, D.C. for 3 sessions of Congress and was one of only 7 women allowed in the reporters' gallery. Her Durango connection is that she was in a race to start the first newspaper in the city and beat the competition by 2 days because she published from a tent pitched in 2 feet of snow. She may have used a press like this one. The woman portraying Mrs. Romney was a volunteer and an excellent actress. She had the whole car laughing throughout the trip. We're down close to the Animas River. The railroad runs along the banks of the river before making the climb to Silverton. Mrs. Romney, the guide in our car, told the story about the Crazy Woman Creek sign along the railroad. The most common story is the violent and tragic tale of the settler who witnessed the capture and scalping of her husband, which drove her to insanity. A less popular story is that it was named for a Native American woman left to live alone in her teepee here, who went insane. The train stopped at Cascade Picnic Pavilion for lunch and to turn the engine around for the return trip. In the summer, the train climbs up the mountains and goes all the way to Silverton. The Animas River is far below us. Our train is chugging up a steep slope on its way back home to the Durango station. Day 9. We left Durango for Colorado Springs, an all-day drive, and stopped in Pagosa Springs. This sculpture at a gas station caught my attention. Which side do you like better, the dramatic shadow side or the detailed front view? Day 10. We stopped to see the Garden of the Gods in Colorado Springs. It's only 70 miles from the Denver airport on our trip home. As you can guess, this sign marks the entrance to the Garden of the Gods. I'm using my computer skills again to merge one of my photos with the sign. The locations match up, top and bottom. Rock formations populate the garden. These rocks are larger, but they're not the largest formations here. Balanced rock is one of the most popular attractions in the garden. The formations are different, but the balanced rock in Arches National Park is popular too. I can't sit round all day and talk with you city slickers. My boys and I got to carry these cows to Abilene. This is the end of our journey, and we've been to a lot of different and fascinating places. Which one did you like best? For me, I can't decide between Arches National Park and the Durango and Silverton Railroad, but I'm glad that we visited each one. Happy trails to all of you. Don't forget to watch the 2 minutes of photos of our train that didn't make it into the program.